Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, lovers and seekers, those who are lost and those who are found. Tonight, we will be discussing another fragment. This one sports a headline that reads, "For Nothing for Us," and the body of this fragment reads as follows. Sometimes we wait for nothing, and sometimes nothing waits for us. That's it. For nothing for us. Sometimes we wait for nothing, and sometimes nothing waits for us. That being said, let's get started, shall we? For nothing for us. There are two kinds of emptiness, and they are not the same. The first is self-imposed. It is the waiting that assumes arrival. The paused breath before the door opens. The held posture before recognition comes. The belief that something, someone, some opportunity, some correction is on its way. Waiting carries hope in its spine, even when it pretends not to, even when it claims detachment. Waiting assumes motion in the unseen. Sometimes that assumption is wrong. Sometimes the door does not open. The call does not come. The apology is never formed. The offer never materializes. Time passes, but nothing approaches. The waiting posture becomes a sculpture to absence. In that version, nothing is not an event. It is the revelation that expectation was misaligned with reality. It is not dramatic. It is not violent. It is quiet erosion. A slow understanding that the horizon was empty all along. That is waiting for nothing. It is not foolishness. It is human pattern recognition attempting to predict kindness, opportunity, or justice in a field that offers none. It is the mind constructing probability where there is only silence, but the second line turns the blade. Sometimes nothing waits for us. This is a different condition. It is not the emptiness of expectation unmet. It is the emptiness of absence unaccommodating. There are moments when a person arrives late, not to an event, but to their own becoming. The opportunity has passed. The season has shifted. The room has rearranged itself without them. No malice, no betrayal, simply movement. Nothing waits. Time does not pause out of courtesy. The world does not hold position until readiness stabilizes. Seasons turn without consultation. Sometimes nothing waits for us means that delay carried consequence, that hesitation accumulated, that indecision calcified into forfeiture. There is no villain in this structure, only motion. The first emptiness is about misplaced hope. The second is about misplaced timing. One is patience without payoff. The other is arrival without availability. The two are mirror images. Waiting for nothing suggests endurance that outlasted its object. Nothing waiting for us suggests opportunity that outlasted its patience. Between them lies discernment. How long to hold, how long to delay, how long to remain open before closure becomes necessary. Modern life confuses constant motion with wisdom. It teaches acceleration as virtue, but the fragment does not celebrate haste. It acknowledges that waiting is sometimes required. The problem is not waiting itself. The problem is waiting without calibration. There are seasons where endurance is strength, holding ground, refusing premature exit, trusting that not everything reveals itself immediately. There are other seasons where endurance becomes stagnation, where loyalty becomes inertia, where patience masks fear. The difficulty lies in telling the difference. Sometimes we wait for nothing, because the thing being waited on does not exist. It was projection, it was imagined, it was hoped into form, and no amount of stillness will make it materialize. Other times nothing waits for us, because movement required courage earlier, because stepping forward required risk that was deferred, because readiness was postponed until the window quietly closed. There is no universal formula here. Waiting is not inherently noble. Neither is urgency. The fragment does not condemn either posture. It names tension. There is also a third layer beneath the lines. Sometimes nothing itself becomes companion. The empty room, the quiet house, the unanswered message, the delayed reply. Emptiness can grow heavy enough to feel like presence. In those moments, waiting shifts from expectation to confrontation. The self is left alone with itself. No distraction arrives. No interruption breaks the silence. That kind of nothing does not move. It does not depart. It simply exists. And in that stillness, something uncomfortable surfaces. Identity without audience. Waiting for nothing can expose that. It strips away the assumption that something external will validate, complete, or resolve. Nothing waiting for us can expose something else, the cost of delay. the reality that time moves whether participation does or not. Both lines resist melodrama. They describe ordinary tragedies, the kind that do not make headlines, the kind that accumulate quietly in human lives. A person waits too long for a recognition that never comes. Another waits too long to act, and the moment closes. A relationship is held open beyond its pulse. A career shift is postponed until necessity replaces desire. A word of apology is drafted too late. Sometimes the waiting was unnecessary. Sometimes the delay was fatal. Neither emptiness announces itself as such in advance. That is what makes discernment so rare. The fragment ends without solution because there is no clean resolution. Sometimes waiting is wisdom. Sometimes waiting is fear. Sometimes nothing is the teacher. Sometimes nothing is the verdict. The only consistent truth is movement. Time does not negotiate. And nothing, when it arrives, rarely explains itself. To live well within this tension requires something steadier than hope and sharper than urgency. It requires attention. Attention to seasons. Attention to interior motives. Attention to whether stillness is rooted in clarity or avoidance. Waiting for nothing wastes life. Nothing waiting for us reveals that life does not wait. Between those two realities lies the narrow path of timely action. Not rushed. Not stalled. Simply aligned. And alignment is quieter than either panic or passivity. Sometimes we wait for nothing, and sometimes nothing waits for us. The difference is rarely obvious at first, but eventually it is felt.